Hi, I'm Hillsborough County Commissioner Sandy Merman. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you how important it is to take time to prepare and make a plan for hurricane season.
I'm Tim Dudley, your emergency manager. We've learned many valuable lessons over the years and want everyone to be as prepared as possible this storm season.
In these uncertain times, it's more important than ever to have a plan and be prepared. COVID-19 has shown us that coming together as a community and being resilient is key.
Our team is working hard to keep Hillsborough County ready for any disaster and to provide our residents with resources in case of a hurricane.
To make sure you're ready this year, the first thing you need to do is to sign up for HCFL Alert. You'll receive current emergency information by phone or email.
Next, make a plan with your loved ones. Knowing your evacuation zone and evacuation route is crucial. If you have to evacuate, consider reaching out to friends and families that live outside the evacuation zone to see if they can host you.
If staying with friends or family isn't an option, you can always consider hotels or motels outside of the evacuation zones.
That's right. Hillsborough County emergency shelters are lifeboats, not cruise ships. They should be considered a last resort to keep your family safe.
If Hillsborough County emergency shelters are your only option to evacuate, come prepared. You'll need some additional items this year, including face masks, gloves, hand sanitizers, and other personal items.
At Hillsborough County emergency shelters, you should be prepared to practice social distancing and come with your emergency kit and the items your family needs. Remember, shelters are not a resort. Their last resort. They won't offer any amenities and resources may be limited.
During storm season, you should also keep your gas tank full and keep your emergency kit close at hand.
Make sure to check supplies in that kit, including medication, radio, flashlights, and batteries.
And as we mentioned, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, please include face masks or coverings, hand sanitizers, and gloves.
I want to echo what Commissioner Merman just said. These additions are essential for your health and that of others, especially if you need to go to a county shelter.
In addition, do not forget to pre-register loved ones who require
It is 9:01 a.m. on July 29th, 2020, and I would like to start this program year 2020, Csbg, Coronavirus Aid Relief CARES Act training. We don't have a roll call. I don't have a list of roll calls. So can everyone tell me who is on the line? I can go by who I see. I have Christian Lamp, William Thomas, Pat Simmons, Marcia Sedano, Brewer.
Good morning.
Who am I missing?
Santos Morales.
Regina Gambriel. Samelia Davis. Samelia Davis.
Noreen Miller.
Christine Long.
Yes, Ms. Long. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to come on to this call. I'm really glad to see everyone on because it's very important that we all have a part in discussing and deciding how we're going to proceed with this relief fund. So with that, I am going to allow staff, Ms. Sharon Gordon, to take the lead as far as the training. And if we could, any questions or comments that we have outside of what we're discussing in this training, if we could save those for the end, please. Thank you.
Okay, and Ms. Hill, Joey Henderson is also on the line. Am I correct?
Good morning, Mr. Henderson.
I see his name up there, so maybe. Okay, so before I start, I just wanted to defer to Ms. Maria Gillis. Is there anything you want to start off with this meeting, or am I clear to go?
We're clear to go. Thank you so much for your participation today. It's so important to have as much board participation as possible to make sure that these dollars are spent, for our community. And I'm at UCRC today. We have some work that we're doing with the new R3 program. So I may be in and out, but I'm here for any questions that need to be answered.
Okay. Mr. Christian Lampe, I'm ready for the PowerPoint. Okay, so today we're going to, this is our budget workout to determine the use of the Csbg oh my gosh, why am I tongue twisted? Aid relief and economic security practices. So the areas that we're going to discuss is the grant conditions and then the staff recommendations, and then just give you a little.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you because there's other people that aren't on mute.
Okay.
Nodding you out for me.
Mr. Thomas.
Good morning.
Hi.
How you doing?
Could you put your microphone on mute?
I sure will.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, so and just to give you a little bit of background information on, so as you are aware, for those who are new to this budgeting planning process, this is something that we do every year when we receive community service block grant funds. The purpose is the Community Action Board are to participate fully in the development, planning, implementation, and evaluation of programs and projects designed to serve the low-income citizens of Hillsborough County. And so the purpose of this planning session is to identify programs and projects to fund with the Csbg grant appropriations and identify the performance goals and funding levels for each program and project. So just a little background, some special grant conditions on the Coronavirus Aid Relief Grant, which we call CARES. The grant was awarded, and the grant start date was May 13th, 2020, and the award end date is September 30th, 2022. The actual award is going to our Board of County Commissioners.
I'm sorry, there's still somebody background noise. I'm sorry, just somebody else that's not muted. I don't know who it is.
There's a lot of echo in the back, almost like sounding twice. There's probably 3 or 4 people that are still with their microphones on.
Can everyone please put their microphones on mute? That way we can reduce the amount of feedback. Okay, so we're moving forward. All right, so the grant award start date is May 13th, 2020, and the end date is September 30th, 2022. So this is a 2-year grant. The status of the grant award is at the next Board of County Commissioners meeting. It will be voted on for approval so that we can use those funds. So the purpose of this award is to prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus in a manner allowed under the Csbg Act, meaning that in the manner that we manage funds now, it will be consistent to how we manage these particular CARES supplemental grant funds. From the Department of Economic Opportunity perspective and from the federal perspective, any individual family who are already low income, they are considered coronavirus affected. And so the use of the CARES Act fund to assist any low income individual or community is considered a legitimate response to the coronavirus. As we had mentioned in the prior meetings, the poverty guidelines changed from 125% of the Department of Health and Human Services guidelines to 200%. And that was in response to the COVID crisis. So that means that we can serve more individuals because their income guidelines are now 200%. That also goes for the regular Csbg grant as well. So before I move forward, I'm going to stop there and just if anyone has any questions or need any clarification.
Sharon, hi, this is Rosa. The only thing that I saw yesterday when I was reading this is the Csbg CARES Act.
Yes.
I don't know how many people on the board have actually tapped into that link and read that CARES Act. So I actually downloaded it for myself so that I can understand it. Actually, this is, and I may have missed it at some point, but this is the first time it's been referenced since I've been on the board. And that may be, my fault for not paying attention, over the last couple of years, but I would like to have it for every board member to review if they haven't, so we have a full understanding of the CARES Act and, what guidelines we're following, just to be able to read that for background information.
So I could send that information to the board. Is that what you're requesting?
Yes. Just in case nobody else had read the entire thing. Mm-hmm. Just to make sure everybody has it, so when we're referencing it, everyone knows what it is.
Definitely. Yes, I can do that. Are there any other questions before I move on?
Ms. Gordon, just to give us a good idea of what 200% of the poverty guidelines look like, or the AMI, we're talking about.
So basically, it's 125%, which is a smaller group of individuals that can apply for assistance. So they increased it to 200% because more people are affected by the COVID. So they didn't want to make it so stringent and so low as to 125%. If that makes sense, that means that the income threshold has slightly increased to the number of people in the household who would be determined eligible, if that makes. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does to a degree. I mean, in terms of real dollars, we're looking at a family of three of $43,440. Mm-hmm. And so for any members who aren't really familiar with the AMIs, and that's something that can just do a quick search on. And also if you all have an outline, that would be great for us to have, so we know exactly what kind of dollars we're talking about.
Yeah, we do have an outline, and I can send it to the community, to the board, so that you can reference, so you can see what it looks like for a household.
Awesome, thank you.
Ms. Gordon, my question is, you said this is going in front of the board, the county. What date is that slated for?
I believe it is August 8th. Mr. Greta, am I correct? Yes, I believe it's August 8th.
Thank you.
And I'll double check that just to make sure. And
Sharon, it's actually August 5th is
August 5th.
the BOCC meeting next Wednesday, and
Okay.
it's been put on that agenda.
Okay, August 5th. Thank you, Derek. Are there any other questions? Okay, so moving forward. So the funding allocation for the CSBG CARES Act is, for the direct client assistance, is $1,283,697. So that is the portions of funds that we will be discussing today with staff recommendations. We're ready for the next slide. So based on our needs assessment, there are COVID-related gaps in service. Some include access to nutritional food for youth and other vulnerable residents. Now that students have transitioned to e-learning platforms, access to traditional learning environments, their transition makes it a challenge with e-learning platforms. That includes Wi-Fi assistance, students who need tutoring services, and also equipment. Challenges with income replacement, which we're well aware of, with utility providers suspending account services or their past due obligations increasing, volumes of households facing evictions for past due shelter obligations. The next slide. We can move to the next, yeah, thank you. Residents who are offered the ability to telework, there are challenges with equipment and internet connectivity, which could challenge, which they could face a loss of employment if they cannot fulfill the duties of their job.
Is Yvette there, please?
Yes.
This is Tim Canyon with Bay News 9.
Yes.
Ms. Lewis, could you please mute?
I'm sorry, that person's not muted.
Here, they're coming in set up on top today.
Do we know who it is?
Ms. Lewis? Okay.
Are you still there?
Oh, wait a minute.
Okay. So also challenges with school age and college students who have the ability for distant learning. However, they're lacking the equipment or internet connectivity. And so there are not a lot of resources that we are aware of that provides internet connectivity and additional services in the e-learning platform, or residents who are required to telework because their jobs require that of their position. So just to highlight, the areas that we are recommending are utility account assistance, rental mortgage assistance, education and tutoring services, education employment tools assistance, healthcare assistance, food assistance, and assistance with childcare payments.
Sharon, if I could just interrupt just for 1 second. Board members, the reason why we used utility account assistance with these funds, although we have LAHEAP dollars and there's R3 money out there for TICO assistance, there's no money out there for water bill assistance. So the utility account assistance that we're looking at is to assist those families impacted that need assistance with their water bill.
Ms. McGill, is there a reason why water is not included with utilities?
For LAHEAP, it's just electric.
Energy, okay.
Right. So there is a gap. So these dollars, using these dollars for utilities for water is going to be a big help to those customers.
And with there being a gap, is there anything within the county to provide that type of assistance?
No, that's why we're using it here.
Okay. That's why we're using it here for water? That's my question. Is there anything?
Correct,
Okay.
For water.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. This is Osea Wynn speaking. In in terms of the utilities, has consideration been made for the, to use maybe internet and cable payment, not cable, but internet payments, understanding that so many more of the students and families are working remotely and will need access to the internet, or students need access to, for their virtual learning. So is that a consideration here as well?
Ms. Nguyen, when we move forward with the funding applications, that is possibly a staff recommendation, but it would need further discussion on how we would provide that service in regards to internet access. That's a new service that would be provided through this grant. So yeah, okay. we can discuss that further when we discuss the funding, the staff recommendations.
You did say wait and hold your questions, right?
That's okay, you can ask questions. So are we ready to move forward? Are there any additional questions? Okay.
Sharon, this is Rose, excuse me. So for Ms. Nguyen's question, as far as internet services, if I'm hearing you correctly, your response is that the staff will discuss how that can be paid for, or is that something we're discussing today as a possible way to assist the residents?
We can discuss today as a possible way to assist residents, yes.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, but you guys, as far as staff need to, or the board, maybe if I'm stating this correctly, needs to decide what that looks like and how it would happen?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so moving to the next slide, funding allocation and staff recommendations. So we have 7 categories: family relief assistance, education assistance, education and employment tools, healthcare assistance, food assistance, youth services, and then the bucket of money that we're always required to have is supportive services. So we'll start with the family relief assistance, and that would include utility, shelter, and child care assistance, similar to what we're already providing to our family empowerment customers. That would be the water assistance, electric, mortgage, and rent. And then we also provide, we cover their children's daycare tuition. We have $780,000 allocated for that service. And then education assistance is assisting individuals with providing access to funding for education, training, and retraining. And we factored in GED tests at $200 per person. So we've allocated $33,600 to the education assistance. Before I move to this next slide, does anyone have any comments?
Yes, Chair, I'm sorry, this is Rosa again. So for the family relief assistance, the $780,000, is that for families that are currently in the FEP program, or who would that serve?
No, the families that are currently in FEP, they'll continue to receive services with the regular Csbg grant. So this would be in another group of individuals that this isn't necessarily a case management program. It's immediate relief to these families for their assistance so that they won't get evicted or their utilities will not be disconnected. So it's it's just direct client relief assistance. There's no case management per se or self-sufficiency aspect to it. As with the
so for those families coming into the neighborhood service centers requesting relief or requesting assistance, they would fall under this portion of funding.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I have a question too. This is Christine Long. Yes, so this is additional families to the number of families served in this cycle is going to increase by 156, or are some of them the same households?
This is a separate pot of money. So this is in addition to whatever we're currently serving with the CSBG FEP program. So it's two different, you have to separate the two. So this is in addition to, so these are an additional 156 families that will be assisted with which will receive financial assistance.
This is Maria. I think for future, if we can call our regular CSBG, and maybe just call this CARES. So that way we can differentiate, because they are totally different. They're going to be different reporting components for staff. There's going to be different regulations. So if we can say CSBG is our regular funding, which this board has already voted on, and then we'll just call this CARES money for right now, so that way we don't confuse them.
Yeah,
but today it's basically just CARES money.
That's a great suggestion.
Okay, I have a question. This is Noreen. So the CARES dollars, will they be assisting the FEP, new FEP family? So we can get that clear. We have the other CSBG dollars with FEP families already there, and I think it's like 58 of those or something. And then the CARES is going to send an additional 156 slots.
Right, but this is not FEP families. Right. These are just families that we're going to assist. FEP is solely CSBG dollars.
Okay, and then my other question is, as I'm looking now at the education assistance for the GED, this is going to be an additional new 168 folks for CARES.
Correct.
So okay, so the other CSBG dollars that we're doing for GED is, I don't have that number right in front of me. That I would just, with that, we're going to be having new 168 new GED folks.
Correct.
Okay.
Ms. Gordon, I have a question. This is Santos. In terms of the family relief assistance, 156 slots at $5,000 per slot. Are these one-shot deal for these individuals? Do they get the entire $5,000 at one? Or will there be an open application where if a family is approved, then they can tap into this $5,000 for utilities, shelter, and childcare throughout the period?
There will be a maximum benefit amount for each family, but it's not like we're holding it's not like, okay, you've enrolled in our family relief assistance, so we're going to designate $5,000 for your service. You can get up to a certain amount of funds. So, but it is as if funds are available. So it's not like we're going to hold.
Okay, I have a question, Ms. Gordon.
Yes.
Well, and this is just my suggestion. I think that $5,000 per slot. I'm glad that he brought that up, because I really had missed that portion. I really would like to see more money allocated there for families, looking at $10,000, because this GED at $33,000, I'm kind of concerned with that being spent, but I think that money would be well spent if we increase that per slot, because I feel families going to need more than $5,000 to be stable with what's going on right now. That's just my observation. And this board can make recommendation to increase that per slot. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Well,
and I think that we should increase it. I don't see $5,000 really, you know what I'm saying, serving the families. I think that it should be increased. That's just my recommendation. We increase that $5,000, $10,000 per slot, and maybe reduce that GED piece.
Ms. Noreen, Sharon, I'm sorry, before you chime in, can I just clarify something, or you guys clarify it for me? The $5,000, this is not, these families are not case managed like FEP families. These are people coming in on an as-need basis to get assistance with the categories utilities, shelter, and childcare, right? So they could need the $5,000, or they could only need $500 per person.
I'm thinking.
Right. So, Ms. Noreen, I think I'm bringing this up to say, these families are not going to be case managed. And if we were to recommend increasing this to $10,000, that reduces the number of families we say we're going to serve. And we stand the potential of having all this money in there because we've capped it off to a certain limit of people to serve.
Okay, Madam Chair, I understand what you're saying. As we were going through the slides and I saw for the salary, I think it was at 25,000 something, as though they were going to hire an additional staff. And I didn't ask the question then because you had asked that we wait to the end. But since you all opened up for questions now, if they're getting money, they should be case managers. And I'm thinking that they were going to hire a person to track them. I'm not clear on how this is going to be captured since they're not going to be FEP families. It's going to be as needed. And so nobody's going to track those folks that come in. I would think that they would have someone assigned to case manage dollars that's going out the door.
Noreen, this is Maria. Maybe this will help. Look at these dollars as it's an emergency and we're helping with that emergency. We're just trying to get them over that hump. There's a lot of other funding that's out there that will assist with the case management portion of it if that's where they're at. But what we're seeing, at least on the social services side, is these individuals have never been on assistance. These individuals were working. They just had a traumatic situation happen because of loss of employment or reduced hours because of COVID. So it's really not that they need to be case managed. They were doing very well. These are just individuals that had a hiccup because of the situation, and we just need to get them out of that hiccup to continue. If these families that are identified actually would be a good candidate for our FEP, then my suggestion would be to identify those families and make them FEP, so that way we can case manage them correctly. But the way that these dollars were allocated, it's truly just to get these folks back on their feet, because they were on their feet. These individuals are people who were working and doing well. It's just unfortunately, because of the service area that they work in or whatever situation, they found themselves in a bad spot. I hope that helps.
Ms. Gillis, thank you very much. That is very helpful. However, I just see that it's going to be a greater need than we have there for families. I mean, maybe we may need to increase that. This is situation, I don't see it going away anytime soon. I see a lot of people are not going to be able to go to work, and we know we can't help everybody. I just think that this GED dollars, some of that, that number is a big number to say we're going to serve, and as a board with responsibility to make sure these dollars are spent. I just think that's a lot of 168 GEDs. That's great if it happens, but I think some of those dollars still can be allocated to helping families with their utility, with the rent. That's my point, is making sure that we got enough money there.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that if the board's recommendation is to move more money into the family relief assistance, I am totally with that. You know me, I'm always up for helping more families. The only thing I was clarifying is that these families are not really case managed families. These are just to get them over that hurdle. But absolutely, if this board wants to move money around, staff it can do that. There's no problem.
Thank you, Ms. Gillis. Maybe case management is not the right word for me to use. I just want to make sure that we have dollars in place to help families get over that hump and not have it sitting in the education assistance program and it's not used. That was my point. But thank you for the clarity.
Good morning. I'm sorry, this is Rosa again. Let me clarify something that I said at the beginning when I said about the questions. If we could refrain from asking questions that has nothing to do with what we're doing here today, or having conversation outside of discussing how we're going to spend this money, those are the questions and comments I would like to have at the end, because we're on a time schedule. So I want to make sure that everyone on the call, time is respected, and that we're actually discussing what we came here to discuss today. So that's what my comment was about. I encourage all the board members to ask questions about this CARES money. It's the other stuff that we have a tendency sometimes to talk about that prolongs our meetings that I would like to limit that, please. Thank you.
I have a question. I have a question. Can y'all hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay, my question is, how do the families or a person in need know about this program? How are y'all getting this information out to the community, or are y'all limiting the information because we only have a certain amount of slots?
Yvette, this is Maria. Once we get the board's recommendation on how to move forward and what buckets of line items we will be putting money into, then we can work on the communications part. We can't communicate yet because we're not really sure what we're faced with. But as soon as this board votes on exactly how much money is going to go in each line item, then we'll work with communications to get the word out.
Thank you.
Thank you. And actually that puts it on our radar. So thank you so much for reminding us of that.
I have a question. This is Mr. Henderson. Are those categories fluid? Are those staff recommended categories, particularly when it comes to the GED?
Yes, Joey, these are staff recommended. So the board, after we review the funding allocations, the staff recommendations, you can go back, revisit this and shift money around, eliminate, like Ms. Miller mentioned, the GED test. That might not be the best use for these particular CARES funds. So you have you can decide and vote on where you would like, where these funds would be best appropriated.
Okay, so we will have a education category, but it may not necessarily be GED. It just could be increasing one's education and helping them with that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is Maria. I hate to interrupt, but I just want to maybe put that out there. I got cut off earlier, so I'm not sure if Ms. Gordon already covered this, but these funds that we've been allocated are also for 2 years. It's through 2022. So we also need to keep that in mind, that although the immediate need may be one thing, but maybe a little bit further down the line, some other needs may come up. So think of this as assistance for 2 years. I'm glad Ms. Copeland-Miller said this, that people are going to be impacted for a long time. So this program, these dollars will go for 2 years. So although the immediate need may be to assist them, paying their rent or paying their water bill, but eventually if they need to get into a different service line because their job has been deleted, maybe education would be the next step. So keep that in mind. This is a 2-year program.
Any other questions before I move on? Ms. Hill, are we okay to move forward?
No, I have a question for Ms. Gillis, what she just said. So my question is, so once they get into this program, do they have to stay in this program, or can they move in or out? And when you say into this program, does that eliminate all the other programs that they could get into or apply for or get assistance from? Not financial assistance, but if they want, because I thought, like, if this was the CARES Act, then it just goes straight for that, as opposed to being in the social services programs for this. Yeah. So I just wanted some clarification.
Yeah, absolutely. Ms. Lewis, thank you for bringing that up. I guess program is a bad word for me to use for this. It's really not a program. It's just like a funding source assistance.
Okay.
So it doesn't mean that when they're in for 2 years. It's not that at all. It just means that the funding overlaps for 2 years. So individuals tap into it within those 2 years, but they don't have to stay at all. I mean, once they come in and it's truly a relief. It's a relief for a moment in time for these individuals in our community. I hope that helps.
Yes, that helps a great deal, because I don't want them to be stuck into this program, and if they try to go get something from someone else, and then they see their name in the system here that they're already in the system receiving services. So because you may not offer a service that they need from another organization. So my thing is, I'm thank you for that clarification.
Absolutely, and thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, it's definitely just geared to ensure that individuals who are having a hiccup in their life because of this COVID, that they can receive whatever dollars they need in the buckets that this board allocates.
So Maria, now that, hi, this is Rose again. So thank you, Ms. Lewis, for bringing up that question, because it opens up two questions for me. And the first one is, can a participant come back more than one time? So say 2 or 3 months down the road, or even next year, if they need this assistance again, can they come back? That's the first question. And the second question is, for all those families that are out there already receiving subsidy, say like people that are on Section 8 or in housing that already receive federal subsidy. I know on the regular programs outside the CARES Act, they don't qualify for certain things. Would they qualify for assistance under this CARES Act money?
On your first question, due to this being a 2-year funding cycle, I would think that if they're still impacted, and impacted is the key word with all these CARES dollars, it has to be an impact that happened due to COVID. So loss or reduced wages and just impacted. So my answer would be, loosely, yes, if they're still impacted. We don't know how long this is going to take. As Ms. Copeland-Miller stated, we don't know how long this is going to take. So yes, if the impact continues, I wouldn't see how they would not be eligible as long as it was up to the max that this board determines. On your second question about supplemental due to being in housing, that's something I have to, I don't want to really answer until I do some research, but I will get back to this board with more information on that one. I don't know offhand, in other words.
And Madam Chair, this is Noreen. That's why I suggest, as a board member, I would think that the monies would be better spent in that family assistance rather than to allocate that amount of dollars for GED, because it is a long-term, 2 years. I just want to make sure, and I'm sure the board, there's enough money there to assist families when they do come, and it's not in another category and you can't get it because it's a different need. That was my point with that GED fund. So.
Okay, so we'll go on to the next slide, and I'll finish the staff recommendations, and then we can, the board, you can decide on where you would like these funds to be used. So the next section is education and employment tools. And this is keeping in mind individuals who are working from home through e-learning platforms. So this is, or who needs assistance with books, tuition, fees. So this is allocated at $309,400. This supports post-secondary education as well through our current partnerships. We currently have a partnership with the School District of Hillsborough County, which you're well aware. The other section is healthcare assistance. Many families have been impacted with their healthcare coverage. And so we allocated $50,000 to cover their COBRA payments if they if they choose that option, and prescription coverage on behalf of customers who are impacted by COVID-19. so they can continue with their health and wellness. For food assistance, we listed mobile food pantry events, even though as a board, you can decide otherwise, but we've allocated $70,800 for food assistance. And then youth services, one of the things, we reached out to Dr. Hogue, and she mentioned that the basic needs was the number one need of the students who are in low income families, because without those basic needs being met, it's hard for them to focus on the learning aspect of it. But even with that, there are needs with low income students for tutoring services, and additionally Wi-Fi access and equipment. So they've noticed that there definitely is an impact for students who are learning from home in their families. So we allocated $39,000 for tutoring and e-learning support. And then we put $897 in supportive services, which covers miscellaneous costs, which we did prior in the CSBG grant. So for this CARES grant, we've added $897 in supportive services, which we have a lot of flexibility in how we use those funds. So that's all that I have for staff recommendations. So now we can open this time for discussions with the board.
Okay, have you coupled this CARES funding with other CARES funding that's out there in the community? I guess the one that sticks out to me is the education assistance on the job training. A lot of that is, I know Career Source has gotten a huge influx of funding from CARES to provide basically that same type of supports for folks doing educational career stuff. So I just wonder if this is duplicative, or is there enough to spread that across the community?
Well, this is a separate group of funding through CSBG, and this funding goes 2 years. It ends September 30th, 22, whereas the funds that the county allocated to Career Source, that ends actually, I believe, in December. So it's they have a shorter time frame to provide those services with the funds that they were awarded through the county.
Well, if also, let me just say with Career Source, I know that the city of Tampa has special program funding over there that they are also using. So it's not just necessarily county dollars. I hear what Christine is saying. I just don't want to be doing duplication of services, because it's a lot going on for its assistant with work and job support. There's a lot of dollars out there. And I was in one meeting where I know that the city has allocated quite a bit of money to Career Source for those some of the same things that you read off. Okay. I just want to make sure, I would like for the board to make sure we got enough money in family assistance. And maybe that number needs to change, because as I look back at the beginning of the presentation, it's 55%. Yeah, 55 direct services for direct services. Yeah, 55%. So, and then for the program salaries, it's the 25%. So tell me what that $583,000, what that is for program salaries. Can you explain those percentages in the dollars, how that's going to look from when you initially started the presentation?
I'll defer to Ms. Gillis. Is she there?
Basically, Noreen, those are the dollars that have to go to implement or providing the service. We still need staff hours, so we still need staff to provide the services to make the payment. So that's just the percentage that the county has always allocated to ensure that we can dispense these dollars.
Okay, to cover the grant. So that's why I was thinking in terms of case management, because if the salary is going to be there, it looks as though maybe you're going to be hiring some individuals to work with the family assistant people that are coming in, or?
We will not be hiring more staff at this time. It's just allocating their time for these dollars. They will be moved from doing other duties to do these dollars. So it's just their staff hours.
Yeah, this is Santos. I just want to address also that that amount of money that is being allocated for staff equals to 45% of the entire CARES dollars that we're getting. That's over $1 million. Just want to make sure the board knows that, even though I understand that we need people to be able to do that, but it's a huge chunk of money in comparison to the entire grant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This is William Thomas. I concur with Mr. Santos Morales' comments as well, for the record.
Yeah, I'll like to make a comment kind of in the other direction, only because I've been working with some of the CARES funding. There's a lot of reporting requirements, so it has a lot of administrative oversight that is needed. So it is pretty intensive, much more intensive than what we're used to. It's all new, so there's constantly changing regulations. So I think that there's going to be a larger staff burden with this type of new funding coming down from the federal government.
So this is Rose. So my question, and thank you guys, I'm glad that everyone is asking the questions. That's kind of how I would like for this board to move forward over the next year, where it's everyone's involvement as far as how the money's spent and bringing up the questions that maybe somebody else don't know to ask. So Maria, my question to everyone's comment is, you're not going to hire any new staff. And I do understand, because I do work with grants quite intensively, how the reporting can be. Are we transitioning, or is the county transitioning people from maybe a position they're already in to focus just on this CARES Act? And is there any thoughts around backfilling those positions on the county end if staff is moved to work the CARES Act program?
One thing that I want to mention before I answer your question, Rosa, is you also need to realize that this funding is for 2 years. So although it seems like a lot of money, if you divide it between the 2 years, it's not that much money. If staff vacancies happen, yes, we would allocate other staff to work in this area. And Rosa, you're probably better versed in this than anyone on this board. What we're going to do is we're going to do a percentage of their time. We would not make them 100% because that is it's really not smart to do it that way because there's other functions that we may need. So the best part of having a whole department is that we can allocate point in time for each one of those workers that will be working on this program. I hope that helps.
Yeah. I'm sorry, just one more question. With the limited amount of people that we're looking to serve, how many staff people are you looking to spread this money, this allocation over as far as staff? How many people are you looking? What's the spread?
I don't know that yet. I don't know how many people. I just know that we'll allocate whatever the dollar amount is, a percentage of whatever their salaries are, and then we'll determine how many staff folks. It's difficult for me to answer that right now because the board has not voted on how the money's going to be spent. Is it education? Is it crisis intervention? Is it healthcare? Each one of those has a different expertise. So depending on where the board votes, then I can determine with Ms. Gordon on what staff is needed and how we're going to allocate them.
Ms. Gillis, I just want to also, I want to, I want to use your words. You're saying that just to be conscious that this is a 2-year program that is going to be spread in terms of the salaries and administrative, the percentage, but similarly is going to be the same effect on the money that we are allocating for client assistance is going to be over that 2 year. So, I mean, I will make a recommendation to decrease at least by 5% those program salaries and administrative dollars. And that would help, by over $100,000 to allocate for direct client assistance. If you're not hiring new people, if you're just spreading, the work, then perhaps my recommendation is to perhaps consider lowering by 5% those administrative and program salary costs so that more families get some of that assistance over the same period, the 2 year that you were talking about.
Mr. Santos, thank you for that. Let me explain one more thing since you're a newer board member. Social services has other funding sources. So although these dollars are limited, when a customer comes in and there's some other funding source that we could assist them with, we leverage those dollars. So they are getting the whole kit, cat, and caboodle, whatever that saying is. So although the case manager who's working with this family is tapping into the limited number that you just mentioned, they also have at their fingertips, which is why I said they're not 100% paid out of this grant. They're paid out of many, so that way they can tap into the other funding sources also. So if I were to do it the way that you mentioned, they would not, those staff members would be tied only to these dollars. And yes, they could spend just these dollars, but it's really not the best way to support the families because they would not be able to tap into all the other funding sources. Does that make sense?
Madam Chair, may I speak? This is Noreen. Santos, thank you for your recommendations. And as I look at 45% of this grant in staff, I have to really support what Santos, he's new on the board, but his recommendation for me was right on target because I want to see more going into direct client assistance. I think as we look at the other Csbg dollars and we look at the percentages from those dollars that are going into staff and salaries, then we're going to see the same numbers. So I would like to see that decrease that he said go in for more direct client services. I mean, from 25, I would like to see 20% there instead of 25, and I like to see 15% instead of 20, especially since there's other pots of money which you just brought in, because I was focusing on care.
Ms. Miller, I'm going to have Ms. Mistrada jump in because it is a county directive for certain dollars. So I'm going to have her jump in and explain the percentages.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Noreen. Hi, everyone. This is Kelly Mistrada. Per the county direction.
Kelly,
I'm sorry?
This is Audrey. Before you keep going, I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Audrey. I wanted to welcome all the board members. I'm sorry. I've been on for a while listening, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to disconnect from this meeting and get on a meeting with our county administrator. So I just want to let you know you're in good hands, and I apologize for having to exit early. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is Kelly again. Per county direction, and the focus is on the 45%. Under the regular Csbg grant that you approve year after year after year, it's still the same 45%. It's broken out differently. It's 15% admin, 30% program salaries, and then the 55% direct client assistance. Under the CARES Act, the admin, the state has allowed the admin to be 20%. So all that we're really doing is moving 5% that would normally be in the program salaries into admin to increase the admin to 20%, reduce the program salaries to 30%, because the admin gives a little bit more diversity on how the county can spend those funds. But for years, the county's direction is that when there's a grant, we're mandated to take the maximum allowed by the grant for the county to recoup their operating cost. So the 20% admin and the 30% program is the maximum allowed under the contract by the DEO. and per county mandate, we have to take that maximum amount. So I don't think the board is able to reduce the amount or make an exception to reduce the amount that we take for that based on county directives.
Thank you, Kelly, for that.
Understood, yeah.
Yeah, Kelly, I do thank you for that. I know the 20% that you all that the county gets for managing the grant, but because of the CARES dollars, that's coming, and I guess I'm at a disadvantage because I have not read the CARES Act package as Ms. Gordon is going to send out to the board, because I'm thinking this money is coming straight from the feds here for different.
No, the CSBG portion is coming from, it's the same as the regular CSBG grant. It's a pass-through grant from the DEO. The DEO allocated similarly to the CSBG dollars, what counties receive what funds.
But the CARES is administered, I would think, a little different because of the pandemic, the reason that they were sending it. So the 20%, I do understand that piece. I'm just concerned with the 25%. I just think
for the program salaries
in this situation, because we want to have direct client assistance, and I believe it's going to be much more than 55%. And I think there's some flexibility in that 25%. I know that 20% is in stone. I understand that because that's for managing the grant, but 25% is, from my understanding, is not. But again, I'm at a disadvantage. I have not had the opportunity to read the CARES Act, but I do plan on reading that document as soon as we get it. But it just looks like more, 45% going to staff versus 55% for direct services. This board has duty to make sure that we're, making sure those dollars are allocated to help the low income families, and right now helping people in crisis. So that, again, that was my point, just to point it out, that we look at how this money is being spent, because there's the other CSBG dollars, and that's what, 2 million or 3 million, that's on the other end. And then this one is the $2 million that's coming in addition to that. So overall, we're looking at, about $6 million. But I know there's two different categories. That's all I'm saying. You're saying they will be getting money from somewhere else. The way this looks, we just need to be digital. We need to be careful and make sure that we're doing what we need to do, as we are charged with making sure that it reaches the families that are in need. And I don't want us to, they'll come back and look and say, oh, wow, it's more money going in staff than it is really for direct services. And I feel we can serve more people. Thank you.
You're welcome. I understand that. I just wanted to point out that the recommendation to reduce the amount for program salaries or the admin, I don't know that that recommendation could be accepted. That would have to be something that would go way up, because the county's direction has been to take the maximum amount. The maximum amount that the program salaries that the DEO allows is they actually allow 35%. But because we increased admin, we decreased the program salaries from 35% to 30%. And that's the county's mandate. We are lucky our department has our department has worked with the county, because if the county had their, based on every other department in the county, when they have grants, they have to take indirect cost, which would actually be more than what we're able to take now. So we're at a benefit that the county has allowed us to continue to build a grant the way that we have. Since they have given us that exception, I do not think that they would make an exception to allow us to reduce the direct or the program salaries any more than the amount that we were taking.
Yeah, this is Maria. I think, Kelly, I think you're right. I think what would happen is they would make us take indirect costs, which would be way past the amount that we're requesting right now.
Ms. Trader and Ms. Gillis, thank you for the clarification.
So this is Osea again. Question. As we progress throughout the next 2 years and see how the funding is being spent, will we have the latitude to come back and say or recommend additional projects or programs of services? I understand about the funding we're talking about for salaries now, but what about other programs? If we're talking about how we want the money to be spent now, and if we see or realize we don't have success in those areas, but as we progress, we see some need in the community, do we have that latitude and that flexibility to come back and add those, or are we segmented into what we're discussing now?
Ms. Nguyen, thank you so much for that that comment. And that's one of the items that I was going to touch on later on. This is really just a snapshot in order for us to get our working orders from this board to get going. But if we were to see in 3 months that something is different and the needs have changed, we do have the latitude to, for 10%, we can do changes within this department. If it goes outside, I believe, Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 10%, but if it's above 10%, we could still make those changes. We would just need to contact DEO to make those changes. But definitely this board has that ability. What you're voting on today, especially since it's for 2 years, what you're voting on today is basically what this board feels that the community needs. But again, we can revisit this, and I really encourage this board to maybe in 6 months revisit this budget and see where we're at, how many families we've served, and where this money could be better spent. I think that's a great thing that this board can do. And the great thing about these dollars is it's more fluid, where a lot of the other money that's being passed through is, it's just for a short period of time and it's just for crisis. This could actually impact a lot of families because this board does have that flexibility to make some changes throughout the life of the grant.
Maria, you are correct. It is 10%. This will be treated just like the regular Csbg grant. So we could do informal modifications at any time. Anything above 10% would be a formal modification.
Ms. Mastrada, this is Mr. Henderson. Thank you for clarifying that. And having worked with grants myself, I always understand that there's a maximum amount that grants will allow for administrative work. But now, just to be clear, you're saying that the 20% is mandated, or the maximum amount is mandated, and there was a 35% that we could have achieved for administrative, but chose to go with 20%. Is that's what staff is recommending, right?
No, under the normal Csbg grant, you have it mostly. I think you have the overall picture right. Mm-hmm. Under the normal Csbg grant, just our regular Csbg dollars, we take 15% for admin,
right?
35% for, hold on, let me check my math because I'm doing this in my head. Mm-hmm. Okay, under the normal Csbg grant, we take 55% program salaries. Mm-hmm. And the other 45% is divided between the admin and the program salaries. So 15%. So it's, I'm sorry, I'm trying to.
So
it's 30%. So we would take 30% in program salaries.
Okay.
From my conversations with the state, they increased both what we could have taken for program salaries and for admin. So we chose to take the 20% in admin. And let me look at Sharon's. The program salaries, I believe, is 30%. We left the program salaries at 55%. So overall, when we compared the grant, we did not take away from the 55% that would normally go under direct client assistance. Okay. So the breakdown is might be slightly different from what you're used to seeing, but the overall picture of 55% going to direct client assistance remains the same.
Right, Mr. Henderson, in other words, the state realized that allocating these dollars is more cumbersome and takes more staff hours. So they actually allowed us more, but we as staff ensured that it didn't go over what we normally use for regular CSBG dollars. We are living within our means, in other words.
And that's the point that I wanted to hear you stress, is that, you know, if anybody does say that 45% is exorbitant, you can demonstrate that, no, we've actually taken less, that staff has taken less than what they could have taken in terms of this particular program. But also to Ms. Long's point about duplication, because, and definitely I would hope that you may want to defer to her when it comes to how this program is being administered at MetMin. But with regards to the application, that I'm sure there's going to be an application that has to be created for people to apply to this, to the CARES program. And a key question that definitely you want to just kind of put in the back of your mind is to ask the question, have you received CARES funding from other organizations, or are you in the process of applying to CARES funding for other organizations? Not that that matters, I guess, at this point. I don't know if that's going to be an issue. If someone goes to MetMin to get funding and then they go to the county to get funding, not that we can continue to serve them, but if that is a concern, then that will be one question that can be asked. And then also to Ms. Lewis's point, with regards to informing the public, and you know me, I'm a marketing guy. I would recommend that maybe some of that supportive services funding, the $897, be put into marketing, and with regards to radio or whatever other means outside of Hillsborough County, in order to reach the population that needs to know that this money is now available. That would be my recommendation.
And Joe, you were correct with the 25%. I just wanted to, it was reduced. The program salaries was reduced from 30% to 25%.
Okay, and that's what I thought I heard. So
yeah, I just needed to pull up my PowerPoint. I apologize.
That's fine, and I definitely appreciate the fact that that's taken into consideration. Again, Ms. Long has already verified that it does take a lot to administer and manage these dollars, and they are being tracked and not being case managed per se, what is happening under our traditional CSBG, but they are being tracked. People have to let the county know, if I'm going to go apply, I need to let them know my name, my background information, what happened, you know, whatever the other particulars with regards to validating my needs for additional funds in my life.
And Mr. Henderson, to your point, they are taking, as I look at the regular CSBG grant funding, that admin is 15% and the program is 30%. And again, we're back to the 55% direct client. So that's the formula, I guess, that you all keep for 55% of direct assistance. I just think 55% for direct assistance. And we're talking about two different parts of CSBG dollars, CARES and that. It just seems like it's a lot going in to admin and program expense. And I understand it's going to be a lot to get that done. But this board, I just want to make sure that we're aware that 45% of this emergency dollars is going to staff. That's the way it appears. And I know the 20% mandate that the county usually do for admin administering the grant. I'm surprised that I didn't pick up on the 15% with the other CSBG dollars, but now as I'm looking back at it, it is 15%, but I know in the past it's always been 20%. And this may be a time when you may, some of the things have to change from 55% because there's going to be more services, I think, direct client assistance needs than 55%. And we know we can't serve everybody, but it just looked like that's just in stone for 55% of direct service. And I like to see more money going in direct service. That's my point. But thank you for listening.
This is Rosa, and and this is one of the downsides to grants, because I do deal with quite a few federal grants, Charles Neighborhood Initiative, broadband, and the public gets the whole amount. The public gets, the Housing Authority got $30 million. The public gets, Hillsborough County got $2.3 million in CSBG. What the public does not get is how much actually goes to direct client assistance. An example of that is, excuse me, in 2012, the Housing Authority got $30 million in choice neighborhood grants. And because I work people, the people portion of that grant, the public did not get that. The people portion of that grant was only $1.5 million. So out of that 30 million, I only had $1.5 million to serve the clients that that money was designated to serve. So I said all of that to say, in actuality, what the public will not get from this grant is that only $1.2 million of this $2.3 million is out there to help the low-income community. That is the downside to how grants are put out there. And I understand it's a county policy to take the maximum, but agencies do have the option not to. Broadband, which was in 2013 or 2008, I'm sorry, the Housing Authority opted not to take the administrative portion. And with that, 3,500 families were able to receive internet assistance under that broadband initiative. So it is sometimes up to the agency that receives these grants, whether they advocate for the full amount or exercise their option not to take the full amount. So, but I do understand that this is county policy, and as a board, you know, it is up to us if we decide to maybe, you know, say something about it, advocate for something different, even though it may not happen, but to put it on the radar that we do have a concern holistically as a board. So with that, if nobody has any other questions regarding this portion, it's 10:13. We have a lot to get through. Ms. Garden, if you want to move on to the next portion, if we can go ahead and do that.
I was muted and talking. So going back to the direct client assistance with its current allocation, I've reviewed all of the categories and the recommendation of the allocation to each category. Now it's based on conversation on the board on whether you would want to see these funds used all in family relief assistance, or if you want to call it crisis intervention, whatever you would like to name that. So really now it's up to the discussion of the board on whether you agree that, with the education assistance as we have it, healthcare assistance, food assistance.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Yes. How did you all come up with these numbers in terms of the allocations for the different categories?
It's hard. It was very difficult for us to tell what it will look like in the 2-year span. So we used our CSBG regular budget as a guide to the best of our abilities for this particular program, understanding that we could shift funds around mid-grant year as needed. So yeah, so it's basically
and I asked that question. I didn't know if it was a percentage based on our traditional CSBG, or if you actually referred to the needs assessment that was used. You know, we might need to dust it off. At this point, we might need to throw it away, considering the pandemic that we're in. But I was just curious if there was a systematic way that you came up with these dollar amounts for each of the categories.
Yeah,
Ms. Anderson, if I may, I'm going to jump in real quick. You're right. At this point, the needs assessment, in my opinion, and actually I did look at it yesterday just to kind of, you know, see where we're at. And it's definitely, as Noreen has stated, right now we're in chaos, and really the needs assessment really did an overall look at what was going on at the time. Right now we have so many families that have never been through our doors and are tapping into these resources. So it's really, I mean, we couldn't have predicted this ever. But to Ms. Gordon's point, it was just looking at what we were normally doing, seeing what buckets we normally assist with, and also seeing the calls that we're getting, what people are asking for, and adding that. What I would suggest to the board, just a recommendation, is to get the buckets right of what services we want to provide, put money as this board wishes, and then, you know, relook at this again in a couple of months to see where we're at. I think this community is going to look very different in the next couple of months, depending on where our numbers are. But at least if we can get the buckets correct and we can get at least some funding in there and give some staff some direction on getting some relief out to these families, I think it's key. I think Ms. Lewis mentioned this early on, that we need to do it quick. We just can't sit around. People are hurting. This community is, you know, really hurting badly. So if we can at least get the staff in the right direction of getting these dollars out, and then maybe revisit in a couple of months, see where we're at. Maybe there's a greater need in one of the areas that we're not sure of. Maybe that's the direction. But again, staff will do whatever this board directs us to do.
So this is Rosa. Would it be beneficial if we went through this line by line? Because now we're at education assistance, 168 GEDs. Hillsborough County was not doing GEDs. So where are we with knowing whether or not Hillsborough County is doing GEDs? Or I know we're looking at 2 years. I'm keeping that in the back of my mind. But I'm also looking at the fact that, you know, for the GEDs that we've needed to pay for immediate need for people, we've had to pay for them to go to another county to get their GEDs. So they can go ahead and get that job that they were trying to get during this pandemic. So where are we, you know, with putting 33,000, you know, 600? From my experience, what I've seen is youth, you know, e-learning, kids not having enough computers, or if there's 5 kids in the family, they have to share one computer, or, you know, how do we look at that? Where are we as a board with GEDs? Are we looking holistically to fund GEDs, or would we like to see that move somewhere else? Is my question.
Hi, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, Marcia. Sharon, we have maybe the proposal up so that way we can kind of look at it and the board can kind of move along and make some recommendations. And then what I was going to recommend is, Rosa, I understand what you're saying, and maybe if we lump all the education, not the youth part of it, but maybe all the education together to encompass GEDs in case that would be viable in the future, but maybe not make it its own section. So that way, if there was a need in the educational portion, we can kind of tick-tock from one to the other. Maybe that would be a better way to move forward. That's just a recommendation.
Madam Chair, I would like to see that GED, though some of those dollars move to the family assistance portion there. Because over the 2-year span of time, I think there's going to be a greater need in family assistance, and I don't see it being GED.
Okay. Madam Chair, I would like us to look at youth services, because I do believe that with the need for these low-income families to have the e-learning, if they're going to be doing those at home, it's hard for them to get laptops or support. So I would like us to look at the youth services and possibly provide more learning support for the youth. Because I think we have for like 39 slots at 1,000. Go back.
Could you please
That's correct.
Put up the slideshow, that way the board can reference the funding allocations?
And Ms. McGillis, while that slide is being put up, you said something that sparked an interest, and I just, gosh, all of a sudden I forgot what it is.
It'll come back to you.
It'll come back to me.
I'm sorry, did you say you needed the slideshow again?
Thank you.
Oh, the question I have for either of you is, so as we go along, we make the decision in terms of what this allocation budget will look like. And as we go along, did I understand that it is fluid, that if we see that there is an increase in family assistance that's required, we are able to reallocate and see that there isn't a lot of activity with regards to GEDs, we can reallocate dollars?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to be clear, this is Sharon speaking, following on what Ms. Mistretta mentioned, and Kelly, please correct me if I state something incorrectly. It's 10% as an informal modification. However, anything greater than 10% would be a formal modification. So just to keep that in mind.
And how frequently can this fluidity occur? How often can that 10% be used?
We can do it as often as necessary, which is, and I think that for board members who have been around for a while have heard me say this, as long as we get the buckets correct, the line items correct, the dollars, we could always switch between line. What we can't do is we can't create a new category. So if you were to eliminate, let's say, I'm just speaking, let's say we eliminate the education assistance, we just eliminate that line and put those dollars in family relief. And then down the line, we need to, you know, we see that that's a need. To create that category is almost impossible. That's why I'm saying if we can at least get the categories correct and at least some dollar amount in that staff can start working, the actual total amount, we could always switch that around as the board sees fit, you know, in the next 3 months, 2 months, whatever the board sees that they want to do. But really getting those categories correctly is key, and keeping in mind that it is for 2 years. So if there's a category that Ms. Gordon has put in the slideshow presentation that we think that, you know, we are not going to tap into, we can eliminate, just knowing that it's going to be very difficult to get that line item put back in. I hope that makes sense.
It does. And with regards to it being 2 years, is what if we find that the need is great, and I suspect that the need is great, that we run out of funds? Will there be another issue of funding, or do we have, is it a wait and see?
Actually, we need, I don't believe we're going to get any more CARES money, but I mean, everything that I've predicted has gone wrong. So I don't see more CARES funding for CSBG. But one thing that Kelly Mastrada and I did speak about actually last week, and we spoke about it this morning, is that we're not even sure what the new CSBG regular money is going to look like. So, you know, at this point, we know that we have these dollars, we know that it's for 2 years, and we just have to do the best we can to predict the future. I know that that's almost impossible, but predict the future on what categories we're going to need. And then again, the money is fluid. The money, as Rosa is well aware, you know, we can do some swapping there, but the category is key that we get those as accurate as possible for the next 2 years.
Ms. Gill, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say the category, the education assistance, I think we can eliminate that category, because after you look at the other category for education and employment tools, I think that would fit in there. But I think the family relief dollars, we could eliminate the education assistance category and it wouldn't be a problem, because there's another category that addresses education in this PowerPoint when you go to the next.
So this is Ms. Rosa. I agree with you, Noreen, that education assistance, because we are looking at categories, can be lumped with the education and employment tools, with the understanding that within 3 months or 6 months, if we need to move monies, you know, we can look at each category. Actually, in all honesty, I think we have too many categories on here. that we're trying to focus on. So if the board, the group can think about what they've seen in the community and maybe merge some of these categories into maybe 3. So we have 3 major categories that we're focusing on. And then if we had to move the money, we know that we're moving them within these 3 categories. That's a suggestion. So I'm opening it up for comments as far as merging the categories. Based on what you've seen, you know, I've seen kids struggle to try to get their homework done. I've seen people struggle to get their bills paid. You know, education and employment tools, I'll be honest with you, people need that, but I haven't seen so much of that come across my desk. People are in need of help with their kids and help paying their bills. That's what I've seen. So what have you guys seen that best fits how we can serve people with this money?
I know that employment is really critical. You know, there's still a lot of conversation with regards to, particularly for the Black and Brown communities, that unemployment is high. And I know we have our career center and what have you. Anything to assist someone to prepare themselves for the future, and that's why I don't want to discount the GED, the concept of someone pursuing their GED, because that could make a difference for them in terms of moving up in the careers that they have or in a job that they have. So I definitely want us to take a look at employment. I don't think I saw anything listed here specifically to that.
I also want to comment, this is Santos, concur with Joey, education and employment, working in Waimama, I have seen an influx and an increase of people coming in through our doors for self-employment opportunities. We are currently maxed out on the number of trainings that we can provide given the circumstances with COVID and given our training space, our limited training space. So it's definitely something that I would like to seek that is kept here, those dollars. But I also concur with Ms. Sedano that youth services, particularly for e-learning support, is extremely crucial in getting those tools that they need. We are actively promoting in Waimama and in the South Shore area free internet Wi-Fi for families, and we are trying to also secure through foundations and private donations computers and laptops, but it's never enough. It's never enough. So 39 slots is nothing. I would personally would like to see that number increase to match the number of education and employment slots of 182, or maybe come to a medium where we increase the youth services for that particular category and maybe reduce a little bit of those numbers on education and even the numbers on the GED, in agreeing with Ms. Norris. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I will agree with both of the gentlemen that employment is key. Re-employment strategies for folks whose really career fields have dwindled away. They need to find new places to work, new jobs to do. You know, that's really our focus here at Metropolitan Ministries as we move forward, helping people through the pandemic period. So I think that some tools for employment are critical. And the youth services, the e-learning is a huge barrier for lots of folks that we serve, the technology available. So I would agree that I would recommend we up the youth services, maybe not do the GED, specify it. I mean, it could be an option for a tool, but I don't think it's as big of a barrier as the e-learning supplies. I'd also like to make a comment about the healthcare, the COBRA payments. I think that is a fantastic idea. I have not heard of any other funding source offering that to people. It's at least a current healthcare coverage is a struggle with folks, particularly if they get sick from COVID and they've lost their coverage because they've lost their jobs.
That is a great point there, Ms. Long, because you have to keep in mind that, and I suspect, and correct me if I'm wrong, staff, the folks who are coming to Hillsborough County Services, now Social Services, are folks who've, and you actually stated it, who've never used the services before. They probably are people who are gainfully employed or, you know, respectably employed and have access to health insurance or some health insurance, and now they don't have that. And COBRA is truly what it stands for. It's a snake. It's a beast in terms of trying to help take care of your health, especially if you don't have health care. And thank you, Mr. Santos, for mentioning it. And I do see that employment is mentioned in here, but that retraining is critical, I think, for this type of, for this population that may be coming to the county. There are individuals, I went through that when I lost my job and I had to get retrained. I didn't necessarily need a GED because I already have the different degrees as it is, but I needed to get into a different industry. And being able to get a retraining, to go through a certification, project management certification, what have you, only added another quiver, arrow in my quiver. And again, thank you, Mr. Santos, for mentioning the internet corridor that Enterprising Latinas has created down in South Shore and Waimama area. I was going to ask you to talk about that, but you know, supporting organizations like that and expanding what they're doing is going to do a lot more for a population that doesn't have money to pay for internet services.
Okay, so
yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to speak about the essential categories that I see as the family relief assistance, education and employment, youth services, and healthcare. Those are my categories that I suggest. Thank you.
I support that.
I do as well.
I do too.
Okay, so with that, does anyone else have a comment as far as the categories?
Madam Chair, the only other thing that staff would need to add is that the supportive services, which is the last category, that is a requirement. So we will need to have that category just as a catch-all. Even though you could put limited funds in there, but that is a category that has to stay for an economic opportunity.
And with regards to supportive services, I would like to just see it be an even $1,000, knowing that we would want to do some advertising in the radio, and in the newspaper, and whatever we can do to partner with communications to try to get the communication, to get e-blasts out. There's a cost to doing that, and we don't want to be stuck with saying, well, you know, people don't know about this. We've done our due diligence to put money into advertising this program.
Mr. Henderson, this is Maria. That category actually, and Kelly can explain it better, but we actually, we could say a recommended number, but really it's when we do the math, whatever is because it may not be an even number, because we have to make sure that the math works, but we'll get as close to that number as possible.
Understood. Now, it does specify direct client assistant costs. So advertising would not qualify?
Mr. Henderson, this is Kelly. The way that the supportive services works in the state, the DEO's budgets are a little different in that you cannot have cents. Everything has to be a whole dollar when you submit a budget. So like if the other things, the slots, we have to round it out to make it be an even number. So that's why sometimes in the supportive services, you'll see like 10 people at $92.20 because that's what we did to go ahead and get it to be the rounded number. Any advertising or community outreach and costs associated with that do come from the admin bucket.
Thank you for clarifying that.
No problem.
Ms. Hill, oh, I'm sorry. This is Osea. Would you repeat the categories again?
Okay, the categories are family relief assistance, education and employment tools, healthcare, youth services, and supportive services. And that the only category that was left out of what I just said was the food assistance, which is on the original PowerPoint. So if we're looking to categorize based on this, then, you know, we would move that food assistance money somewhere else.
And Ms. Hill, in addition to the education assistance, moving that as well, the 33,000.
Right, the education assistance, yes, move that as well. I'm looking at, my thoughts is that we merge the education assistance with the education and employment tool. So we make those one, right? And then that leaves us with healthcare, youth services, and supportive services, which we have to keep because that's the catch-all for the remaining whole dollar amount that's left in the grant. So the question on the table is the $33,000 for education assistance. Are we moving that $33,000 up to family relief or down to education and employment? Or before I ask that question, staff, does the education and employment tools with the dollar amount, the $309,000, could the GED be included in that $309,000 versus moving the $33,000 there?
Ms. Hill, this is Maria. Actually, that was going to be my recommendation. If you just put, and actually, you don't have to spend any of the money on GEDs, but we could put that language in that section just in case one were to come up. We could use the dollars, but at least it would be fluid and we could use it for the other items that are listed in there. Okay, great. So that means that that $33,000 can either go, well, my recommendation would be that that $33,000 go to youth services. And keep in mind, we still have the option of a modification if we need it. But rather than move it up to family relief where we have $780,000 right now, that we move it down under youth services, adding that $33,000 to the $39,000. I agree with that recommendation.
I agree with that recommendation as well.
I also agree with that recommendation.
I do. I also agree with it.
I agree with the recommendation as well. Like, is it 33.6?
33.6.
It's 33.6, right. Mm-hmm.
I agree with if we can move that to the youth services category.
Now, question. Staff is going to modify the program and go to GED. The reality is that there could be someone who is seeking to achieve a GED, and with the allocation slots as it stands, 182 slots to include tuition fees, et cetera, do we want to inflate that amount even with half of that money for the education and employment tool?
Mr. Mr. Henderson, this is Sharon. I was just inquiring with about our GED referrals, and for this fiscal year, for your information in planning this budget, we haven't received a lot of GED education referrals. So just so you'll know, for this planning purpose, this is through the regular Csbg grant.
Okay, and that's the kind of fact checking that we needed. So with that in mind, I agree with Ms. Hill's recommendation.
So this is Maria. Sharon, could you please go through each category as identified or recommended by Ms. Hill? Let's go through each category and ensure that everything is the way that the board is requesting, because we will need a vote today.
Hi. May I also say something before we do that? Just so that to piggyback on Mr. Henderson's feedback and also with the new information that was giving about the GED, since we have $1,700 per person allotted there, could we make that $1,600 so that the number of slots would be increased to allow for those recipients or those participants that are interested in GED? Or is that number fixed, the 1,700?
Mr. Sanchez, just so, as Kelly, Ms. Mistretta mentioned, we have to round the number. So sometimes the cost per unit and the number of slots is how we come up with our final allocation, because the numbers have to be rounded. There's no cents, it's just full dollars. So we have to take that into consideration when we move funds around.
And Mr. Santos, to your point, if the reports were to be $1 over what we put on the work plan, which is what you're voting on, there would not be a problem in paying it. It's just that is our framework. It's just a way for us to, you know, kind of categorize. Just like the number for family support says up to 5,000, but if we need to juggle that around, we have that flexibility with that 10%.
So the dollar amounts could actually serve more than 182 people.
Correct. It's just a framework.
So Maria, with what you just said, and I think it might be beneficial to say, does DOE allow us to say up to a certain dollar amount and not at a certain dollar amount?
The math has to work for DEO, so we normally have it structured in a way where they can you know, be in compliance with their rules and their ways. The good part about us is that we're able to make those adjustments as needed with our work plan and with our focus report. So as long as we can get close to it and at least get the right bucket amount, we just go over the dollar amount that we allocate in the far right side. In other words, whatever the budget is, we can't go over that, but the meat, the part in the middle part, we can adjust that as needed.
Okay, so for the board's sake, so as long as we understand that it's listed at $1,700 or $1,600, as Mr. Santo recommended, whether we decide on that or not, it's listed at that dollar amount, but it could be, for internal purposes, up to $1,700 or $1,600 per person. And then if a family comes in and only needs half of that, then that half of that money can go to assist another person, correct?
Absolutely, you got it.
Okay, great.
And so, Ms. Gillis, there won't be any issues with having to report to DEO if all of a sudden we see that we have 200 people are in need of the services, or we get to that number. As long as it's under 10%, you're able, budget-wise and number-wise, in terms of service people that are served, you don't have to go to the DEO, right?
What we do is, and this is probably for a full board meeting, but what we do is we have a projection, and that number is what our goal is, but knowing that we're gonna either exceed it by 10% or be under it by 10%, and that's fine.
Thank you.
So do we have any discussion on that, in that area? So the next category is healthcare assistance. We're at 50,000, up to 500, and internally what I'm saying, but it's listed at $500 per person. Are we comfortable with that as a board?
Madam Chair, as I was looking in the healthcare part, I'm comfortable with that 100 people for 500. I think the COBRA payment, the word payments may need to come out and just say COBRA prescriptions, because COBRA is very expensive, being a person who's been in that COBRA process before, and that $500 will not cover COBRA payments, but it would cover prescriptions. 100 because it's allocated for 100 people, 100 participants at 500 per person. So I think payments is a little bit deceiving, but prescriptions that would work for in my opinion. I think the word payment may need to come out.
Ms. Copeland-Miller, this is Maria. I agree with you. I think actually the word COBRA should come out. I think it should be that healthcare assistance, and because when you just allocate COBRA, some people may not need COBRA per se, but other healthcare needs. So I think if we take the word COBRA out and make it just generic, that if they were to have a healthcare need for, you know, in any area, that we would be able to look at that. I think when you put COBRA, that just implies that it's just someone that's actually in COBRA.
Right, okay. Thank you, I agree.
Any further
comments here? That COBRA, the word COBRA needs to come out. I agree with what Ms. Gillis just said when we talk about healthcare.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Any other comments from anyone else around that? Okay, so the next item, which we did not categorize, you know, we're not keeping as a category, is food assistance for mobile pantries. So where are we? What are our thoughts around that $70,800?
I would like to see more money go into education and employment tools, especially if we can also add to that category self-employment, as many people are struggling with finding jobs and retraining themselves and getting new skills. So if not all, but if part, you know, of that money can go into that.
I'll agree with that. Working with
I'm sorry. Go on.
Go ahead. No,
I would like to see some go into youth services as well.
And I agree with Ms. Santos, working with a population of 13,000 realtors, and believe me, not all of them are successful. Matter of fact, quite a few of them aren't very successful, but they are self-employed. And then there are also entrepreneurs that are out there, something I think we should also be encouraging in our efforts to educate people that, you know, being an entrepreneur can be an option as well. So I can agree with that.
This is Sharon. In regards to the self-employment, just so that we can see it from an execution standpoint, delivering the service, what are your thoughts in self-employment? Like, what types of services are you envisioning with covering self-employment?
You know, there are a lot of folks out there, like I said, already mentioned, you know, a realtor, a person who's a full-time realtor, they're self-employed. Someone who's a barber or hairdresser, someone who you know, does yard work even, they're self-employed. And if their source of income has been cut as a result of the pandemic, that's something that needs to be considered. Does that answer your question?
I think what Ms. Gordon is saying is, what type of services are you going to provide those individuals?
If I may chime in, some of the things that we have been doing around self-employment at our organization in the South Shore includes training people and equipping them with tools so that they can get certifications, so, you know, to start businesses. For an example, we just graduated 18 people as food protection managers. And that's a 5-year certification, and the cost of that is approximately $2,100, which we were, you know, able to cover through a grant. So, you know, those type of skills, and we already are seeing some of those people go into buying food trucks and starting their own hot dog carts and different types of ways in which they can make money. Another way in which we are doing that through training people for self-employment is by providing the actual, you know, nuts and bolts of starting managing and growing a business, which is the whole sense of entrepreneurship. And those are training that cost money because we have to include materials and really equip them and give them the hands-on training and the learning abilities around money, managing money, not just loving baking or cooking or whatever their trade or interests are. So that's around self-employment, some of the things that we've been doing.
So, Mr. Morales, if I understand correctly, then what you're requesting is money to go into training and education and training. So it's whether they're self-employed or just someone who is, it's the same type of education and training to Ms. Gordon's question.
I agree, because sometimes the language is limited. And so it requires people to just get a job after getting trained. And this, if we include the language of self-employment, it can also give them the option that if I don't get a job, in this field, at least I can start a business in this field.
Great.
Okay, when you're looking at the allocation of funds, I mean, I feel like the employment and education side is critically important. I agree with everybody there, but I feel like the level is probably a good amount in there. And if we were to move these funds, the excess funds was at 86 or whatever it was, up to the assistance, the family assistance category, that would give us an opportunity to help 15 more households with that critical service, which we know is in high demand. So that would be my recommendation, is to move the additional funds up to that other category rather than add more to the employment. I think there's quite a bit in there, and Career Source is also offering resources related to employment that I think we'll be tapping into as the time goes along. So that's just my thoughts.
Madam Chair, I agree with Ms. Long. I think that would be better served if we moved up to the family relief category.
Ms. Gordon, Ms. Gillis, with regards to our current FEP program, are we on track, or have we maximized it? And actually, no, I retract that question because again, I'm trying to keep it separate in my head that the population that will probably tap into these services are individuals who have realized some success in their careers and jobs, and that they just have run into a snag with this COVID-19 unemployment, unable to do what they normally do to keep their families financially stable. So with that, I'm inclined to say we need to make sure that we do address and have another option for them out there when it comes to the education and employment. And I would be inclined to say I would like to see some of the funding going to the education and employment as well.
Okay, so noted. Ms. Nguyen, if you're still on the line, I know you were trying to make a comment. We'd like to hear your comment.
Yes, so yes, I was recommending, let me pull up my slide here. I was recommending the youth services, and as it was mentioned earlier, we know that virtual learning will be a thing in the short-term future, and maybe in the long-term future. And we've all heard the challenges that parents have had with doing third grade math. So if there's anything that we can do to kind of help in this area with the tutoring or the e-learning support, maybe increasing that a little bit to set our kids or the children or the teens up for success.
That is an excellent point you made. As a matter of fact, the reason I say that is because I just got a text from a coworker, a former coworker of mine, asking me if my daughter, who's a head math instructor at one of the local schools, if she still does tutoring. And you know, with the shelter in and what have you, and the schools aren't going to be opening up as soon as they thought they were going to be, thank goodness. You know, that is going to become even more of an issue as parents have to also become instructors, and many of them aren't equipped and ready for that. That's a very good recommendation.
Madam Chair, I have a question. Did we agreed to move the 33-6 to youth services, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Okay.
ED. Okay. So staff, Maria, Sharon, I'm not sure, but Ms. Nguyen brought up the question of internet access at the beginning of the call. Is this an area where we can address that so she can get an answer, or we can put some thought into that? And I'm assuming, Ms. Nguyen, that your internet access is based around children having internet access for homework assistance?
Yes, ma'am, that is the case.
This is Sharon speaking. In regards to internet access, the logistics of that, I really can't speak to that. Maybe Ms. Gillis would have more information on that. I did read in the news this morning of Enterprising Latina, how they provided access to Wi-Fi in the Ruskin area. So that was very impressive, but I don't have the answer logistically on how we would do that, not unless Ms. Gillis would like to add to that.
Yeah, this is Maria. And Kelly's on the line also, but I'm trying to wrap my head around how we would pay the vendor. It would need to be a vendor that would take our payment. So they would need to fill out a W-9, and there is some back stuff that needs to happen. But I'm just going to make a recommendation and see what the board thinks. Could we include in your top category, which is your family, where you're assisting the households, could we include internet in that category, because we already have utilities for water? Could we add that in there, and then staff on the back end, we can work on the logistics of how we would pay that? At least we would have a placeholder, and it's not just a category just that's sitting out there that maybe we could not achieve. But if we added it maybe to that top category as another area that we would pay or try to assist families with, maybe that's an area that, at least we have a placeholder for it, and then let staff go back. And there's so many internet providers that it could be a nightmare. So I don't know how we would do that, but we could certainly look at it and work on that.
Ms. Gillis, I think that's an excellent idea to expand the language on family relief to add internet access. And I just want to quickly let you know the way we are doing it in Waimama and the South Shore is we are actually covering the service through a grant ourselves. So the people don't have to deal with the service provided. We provide it, we manage it, and we maintain it in partnership with the internet service provided. So, and we learned early on that dealing with different multiple accounts for each individual family, it was a nightmare. And so we just took that off the table immediately and just, created a program where people who are in a specific area can have access to the internet. But I definitely agree that the language should be included, the language of internet access should be included in the family relief assistance on the utility.
Yeah, that's wonderful what you guys are doing. I'm not sure as a county government entity we would take on that obstacle, but definitely there's at least I can think of 5 large providers that maybe staff can work with and try to get some some agreement with those providers to pay on behalf of the customer. But staff will definitely work with throughout that logistics. But I just don't want to promise something I don't know. It would have to be that those providers want to work with the county and receive payment. But at this point, I think it's very important that staff look into it and try to get that done. But adding it to that category, I think it makes us safe, where at least it's there, we can pay for it. But if we could not, at least it's not in a place that would go unspent.
Which category would that go in under? Family relief assistance?
I think if you add that there, it at least puts a placeholder and allows staff to go in and try to do the background work.
I think a good idea would be, I know that the school they were working with the providers and issuing out hotspots. I'm not sure if they prepaid it in advance for 3 months, but I know that for the summer, since the pandemic, they have been issuing out hotspots, and the parents, they just worked the whole time in regards to it being in the home. I'm just not sure how they did it behind the scenes. And I know the Hillsborough Education Foundation is the one that were providing the hotspot, so they might know or be familiar with the background work on how they did that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're a county government, so it's a little different than nonprofits on how we can move forward and how we have to do our agreements and how our procurement works. But definitely staff will look into that if the board puts that category in there.
Madam Chair, I would like to see that up on the family assistance, the internet piece, and then they can, at least it'll be there so they can work on making sure families get that. So I agree to put that in the family relief area.
Okay, so based on everything that we've heard and everybody's comments, we're agreeing to add internet access, the language of internet access under the family relief assistance. There is still the issue of the $70,800 that's assigned to the food assistance line that we need to decide under which category that will go, keeping in mind that, 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, we still have the option to come back as a board to see where money's being spent the most if we need to move money. So if I heard correctly, we had a couple recommendations to split it between education and employment tools and youth services. And then we had a recommendation to put it under family relief assistance. So before we decide, staff, if you could enlighten me and the rest of the board on what the thoughts are around tutoring and e-learning support. What were the thoughts around that? How would families receive support in that area?
Ms. Hill, this is Sharon. Actually, we were discussing that probably a couple of weeks ago, possibly through partnerships with our extension office or through the school district. We already have an agreement with the adult education, so it requires further conversation with the school district if they have any support services. So I foresee this as becoming a partnership with an existing provider with the county, and that is where I'm going with it. And Ms. Gillis, if you had any other feedback towards that.
I'm sorry, I had to step away for a minute. I had an emergency, but I'm good with that.
Okay, so you guys are looking at a partnership, but we don't know right off what that partnership would look like. And I don't have a small child. I don't have a child in school. I haven't had a child in public school for quite a while. So I do feel the pain of the families that do. But what I have heard is that there is tuition assistance free. I'm sorry, not tuition assistance, tutoring assistance free online. Do you think that this partnership would be something like maybe setting up Zoom calls where there will be an actual person assisting these children online. I do know that's what we do at our youth center at the Housing Authority. We have a staff person that actually sets up, weekly calls to help kids online. And my reasoning for saying that is because that all goes back to internet access. So I would, before I decide to put additional monies here, even though I know that we can move them later, I would still like to have a better idea, if we could, of what that looks like. How are these 39 or 69 families, whatever we decide, being assisted in this area? And are we looking at Hillsborough County Schools as a partnership? I know they're doing a lot of stuff for free already. So, what does that look like? I mean, any comment from the board?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, I have a comment. Madam Chair, I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I would, since there are 3 categories that we're looking at, when broken down, it's $23,600 per category and additional, and that's adding to family relief assistance, education and employment tools, and youth services. So my recommendation is just to split that $70,800 up and give $23,600 to each category and end it there. And then later on, if we need to make some adjustments within that, we can.
Any comments around that recommendation?
I support the recommendation.
I support it.
I support it as well.
I support the recommendation.
Yes.
I support it.
I support it as well.
Okay, so I support it as well. So staff Sharon, I think that we've defined our 3 categories. We've defined the dollar amounts in our 3 categories. We do have some questions on the table. About how the families are going to be notified of the services that are available. We're going to research something around the internet and get back with the board on how that would work. And you're going to take out the COBRA language out of the healthcare assistance and just put in healthcare assistance prescriptions, etc. We're going to add self-employment or some language around self-employment to the education and employment tools. And the administrative supportive services line item, the dollar amount would be the dollar amount that is the overage after we equal out each line item as far as the budget. Did I miss anything?
I would like clarity on your food assistance, where you wanted that, the 70,800. So you wanted it divided between could you repeat? I'm sorry.
It was a recommendation and agreed upon by the board that we divide that 70,800 into 3 parts and add an equal amount to the 3 categories we have on the table: family relief assistance, education and employment tools, and youth services.
Okay, you have health services. So do you want it divided amongst the 4?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We do have, I think the vote early on was to keep health services the way it is.
Okay.
Is that correct? From the board?
That was correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
That's correct.
So, Madam Chair, just to keep us in line with rules and regulations, if you can just state what the motion is and have everyone vote, then we can move forward.
On that recommendation, do I need actual dollar amounts or just categories?
the dollar amount would be important if Ms. Gordon, if you can share those, and then Ms. Hill can make the motion and get the vote.
Yeah, give me 1 minute while.
Madam Chair, I can repeat that if I need to. The $70,800 that is currently allocated to food assistance would be split up in the amount of $23,600 for the categories of family relief assistance, education and employment tools, and youth services.
Ms. Gillis and Ms. Gordon, I think, again, going back to the specific breakdown, that's going to flush itself out once staff has an opportunity to do what they do. So to articulate how much each will get, I guess that's all relative, or can we go with what Ms. Davis is recommending?
I think what Ms. Davis is recommending is perfect, just so we have a framework and we have a legal vote, and then we can move forward.
Excellent, thank you.
And I agree with that. And maybe, Madam Chair, if Ms. Gordon could state the amounts that have changed in the different categories that we have identified moving the money. Or Ms. Gillis, if you can give the final dollars for each of the categories.
This is Sharon. As Mr. Henderson was saying, we would have to flush out the dollars, and any overage would go into supportive services. So what I gathered is, okay, so we have family relief assistance at $780,000. And then we have education and employment tools at $309,400, and healthcare at $50,000, and then youth services at $39,000. We're going to eliminate the education assistance of $33,600 and merge that with the youth services to increase the $39,000. And the $70,800, we will divide that $23,600 amongst the family relief assistance, the education and employment tools, and the youth services. However, we have to keep in mind that it may not be to the exact dollar, because it all has to round out to a perfect whole dollar. So any overage would go into supportive services.
Okay, yeah, because when I looked at youth services, I think it came up to $96,200.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
Yes, that's what I got.
So in lieu of giving a final dollar amount, because staff has to calculate all the numbers to make sure they round out, I am recommending that for family relief assistance, which has a current amount of $780,000, that we add $23,600 to that line item from food assistance. For education and employment tools, which has a current amount of $309,400, we add $23,600 to that amount from food assistance. Healthcare assistance remain the same at $50,000. And for youth services, which has a current amount of $39,000, we add $33,600, which was moved from education assistant GEDs, and we add an additional amount of $23,600 that was moved from food assistance. That is my recommendation. That is my motion. Can I get a second, or are there any comments?
I second the motion.
Madam Chair, and you did mention previously, which should be a part of the motion, is that with regards to the descriptions, self-employment would be added to education and employment tools, and that COBRA would be removed from the healthcare assistance.
Yes, sir, I agree.
And internet added to the top.
Yeah, I was going to say the internet added to family relief assistance.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, that is correct.
And I second your motion.
Thank you. Are there any more comments from the board? So Ms. Gordon, what I'm assuming is going to happen now is that, staff is going to go back with everything that we discussed, and we as a board can expect an update of this funding allocation report with answers to any questions that the board may have raised that were not answered today.
That is correct. And I also wanted to make it clear that any overage would go into supportive services, but we will try to get it close to the exact dollar as possible based on the vote.
Madam Chair and staff, what is working backwards? When do we want to see this officially publicized?
Mr. Henderson, once it gets approved by the BOCC, then we can move forward, which I believe is the 5th. So we will work with communications right after it's approved by the BOCC to get the word out.
Okay. Madam Chair, if I may take the motion that you stated, I make a motion that we adopt that, because being the chair, you stated the motion, but I don't know that you can put the motion on the floor, but I'm putting the motion on the floor that you stated.
I second the motion.
And Ms. Noreen is correct, because I was thinking about that. And I didn't know if this is not official CAD board, but this is a budget review, but Ms. Copeland Miller is correct on that.
Okay.
So Ms. Miller made the motion, and I think Ms. Davis seconded.
Okay. Chair, you have a motion.
So am I approving the motion?
Yeah, it's been motion and seconded.
It's been motion and second and approved by the board. And thank you all for your correction.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Madam Chair?
All in favor? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye, aye, aye.
Thank you so much. I just want to say I am so happy that everybody chimed in for this. It's very important that we all participate as a board to make sure that the decisions are being made by everyone involved. So thank you so much. I have a lot to learn, guys, and I look forward to it.
Madam Chair, is there a need for us to come back together with the revised budget? We'll check that out and move forward with it.
Well, I believe that we hear from staff. Once staff is able to put everything together and answer all of our questions, then we can go back and check with everyone. We need to come together again prior to the formal board meeting, or if this would be just something we bring to the formal board meeting.
Madam Chair, if I may, I would like to have this at the formal board meeting. When we get ready to meet, that it's in place, especially in the mail out, so we can see where, it's covered at the board meeting.
Question, now, BOCC meets on the 5th, is that correct?
That is correct.
So if we wait till the board meeting, the next opportunity for this to be addressed by BOCC will be, well, actually, yes, today would be the 7-day notice. The next time we'll be able to address it won't be until August. So I guess at this point, it will have to be August because staff have some homework to do anyway, correct?
Mr. Henderson, this is Maria. The BOCC is just to accept the dollars. How they're allocated is up to this board. So they're going to be accepted on the 5th. There's no changing that. How this board moves forward is, that's what this meeting was for today. So staff has their marching orders. We have some questions that we definitely have to look into, but I think we're in a good spot. We can move forward.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Is there anything else from the board? Any comments, any statements, any concerns, questions?
Madam Chair, great job. I think we got a lot of stuff done, so congratulations on your first work plan. Great job.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, yes. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Madam Chair.
Congratulations. Thank you guys so much. Time is very important to all of us. So I want to apologize in advance if I do make it a point to try and stay in the timeline, but I do respect each person's time, and it is very important to me that our time is not wasted, since we all are volunteering for this board. So if I seem a little rushed, please just pull my coattail and ask me to slow down a little bit, but I do value people's time. That is important to me. So I just wanted to put that out there. And if staff doesn't have any comments, or no one from the board has any comments, for the good of the order, this meeting is joined.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You all.